Chapter 443. So, what about the question I asked earlier? The question followed naturally, like water flowing downstream. Feeling Kishir's gaze, waiting for an answer to his suggestion to read the diary of the first Duke Tane once again, Yudhir paused for a moment before slowly responding. If I complete the task successfully, I would like to do as you suggested. Although he conditioned it on completing the task successfully, Yudhir's willingness to accept Kishir's extended hand remained unchanged, and so did the various meanings that lay within that commitment. Well, whether that task comes to an end or not, I consider it a separate issue, but if that makes you more comfortable, so be it. Before the playful retort could conclude, the back gate of the mansion, their destination, appeared. Yudhir, who had expected the place to be deserted as usual, suddenly widened his eyes upon spotting a familiar shadow. Enon? It was indeed Enon, no illusion. Leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, the man turned his gaze upon hearing footsteps. The somewhat softened smile that briefly crossed his face upon seeing Yudhir disappeared. A guess at why Enon would be here at this time crossed Yudhir's mind, casting a brief shadow over his thoughts. Could it be? Has he really come to reveal his identity to Kishir? Here and now? If he were alone, he could have asked directly, but conveniently, Kishir was also present. With an expression that seemed to say he knew Yudhir would come, Enon approached. Kishir, stepping forward, asked with a smile, "Did you come to see Yudhir? Coincidentally, my assistant and I have urgent matters to attend to. If it's a long conversation you're after, it might be difficult right now." "No, my visit today isn't aimed at him, and it's not a long matter either." Bowing his head in a perfunctory greeting, Enon's gaze squarely met Kishir's. Recognizing that Enon's business was with him, Kishir's eyes widened briefly before narrowing in deep interest. "Oh, intriguing. What's the matter?" Yudhir involuntarily closed his eyes, but the answer that came a moment later was a bit different from what he had expected. "I heard that a rather interesting item was unearthed from the underground dungeon of the security management team yesterday." "Did you hear that from my assistant?" "Yes." Yudhir opened his eyes again. The two men were conversing without looking in his direction. True, an intriguing historical document was indeed discovered. So, what about it? "I would like to take a look at it." Enon's attitude was surprisingly casual for someone addressing a duke and a commander. Yet, there was something about him that made such a demeanor feel oddly acceptable. Kishir, too, was unfazed by Enon's casualness and simply stared back at him. "You might know that the document is a complex mixture of Gore script and early imperial languages. Even I find parts of it difficult to read quickly. Are you saying you can read it?" "If I couldn't, I wouldn't have come." Remarkable. These days, it's rare to find a temple teaching Gore. After responding with what seemed to be a genuine admiration, Kishir's eyes deepened further. "So, why do you absolutely need to read it?" Though the conversation seemed light, the atmosphere for those watching was far from it. Enon, who briefly glanced at Yudhir's frozen expression, swallowed hard and let out a short sigh, as if trying to hold back an immense tension within. Yudhir sensed it, a gaze that seemed to read even the emotions he himself wasn't fully aware of. "Watch closely." It seemed like Yudhir whispered, shifting his lips. Before he could express any doubt, Enon spoke up without hesitation. "To speak before answering your question, it was I who informed that fellow about the protection of blood hidden in the 4th floor of the underground dungeon. ... How would an ignoramus in magic suddenly know that information? I assumed that you would already be aware of what I have done during my monster research. Am I wrong? In response to Yudhir's counter question, Kishir, who had remained silent until now, calmly nodded his head. Yes, you're right. I have already heard about your contributions this time. You are on par with Helem, who received praise as one of the most outstanding monster researchers in history. No, you might even surpass her. It was not easy to comprehend that a mere apothecary could achieve such knowledge and results. Kishir had already heard praise about Enon's skills from Helem, but hearing it like this gave it a whole new meaning. Regardless of Yudhir's spine stiffening with tension, Enon showed no signs of surprise or confusion. He asked as casually as if he were serving a customer in his apothecary. Is there anything else? Nathan mentioned that your casual advice and medicine helped him break through a training barrier. Mick also reported seeing traces of time in you that one would expect to see in ancient trees. You display an abundance of such traits, usually only visible in centenarians. When asked, you admitted it was just as it seemed. This was news even to Yudhir. What on earth have you been up to all this time without my knowing? The question was uncomfortable, but Enon simply ignored Yudhir's gaze. His face suggested that he had anticipated such a response. So, when he said yesterday that revealing his identity would make work easier, it wasn't just a casual comment? Well, if you have heard that much, there is no need for further explanation. So, what conclusion have you come to based on the reports you have heard so far? Enon looked at Kishir, who slowly opened his mouth. A person who's neither a mage, a swordsman, nor a priest, but has profound knowledge in all these fields, bearing the passage of time even older than an ancient tree. It's hard to guess your true identity as a mere human, but... His voice trailed off, resuming after a moment. It makes sense to consider you could be one of the other races that once existed in this land. At that moment, a strong wind brushed past them. Yudhir clenched his fist, suppressing his wildly beating heart. The answer that Kishir arrived at, based solely on the bit of information that Enon had let slip, was eerily close to the truth. A faint, inscrutable smile appeared and disappeared on Enon's face upon hearing the answer. Well, you're not exactly wrong. If this isn't the complete answer, the world is indeed a vast place. I need to improve further. Kishir shrugged his shoulders and chuckled, putting forth his response with dry humor. Is he not surprised? Though Kishir was skilled at concealing his emotions, Yudhir hadn't expected him to maintain such composure during this astonishing conversation. He wondered what the man was thinking, but all he could see was the back and the side profile of someone who was one step ahead of him. At that moment, Enon's gaze briefly shifted back to Yudhir. His yellow eyes, brimming with an inscrutable meaning, met Yudhir's before returning to Kishir. Let me be clear, the reason I came here is because of that guy, and unless something changes, I intend to continue living peacefully as I have been. I assume the commander would share the same sentiment, correct? Kishir responded to Enon's somewhat probing, somewhat confirming statement with a flawless smile and an extended hand for a handshake. Exactly. I appreciate your taking the initiative to clarify that. There was no explicit confirmation of trust exchange between Enon and Kishir, yet both seemed to understand that everything that needed to be verified or discussed had been settled, nodding their heads in unison. In that case, I will send over the item I bought yesterday tomorrow. For me, it has no value beyond that of a historical artifact. Please do so. Is that it? Really? While Yidir was swallowing his bewilderment, Enon shook hands with Kishir one more time, turned without a trace of hesitation, and brushed past him. As he did, he whispered something softly. ... For a long time, Yidir watched Enon's retreating back.